important. All of this stuff is important. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we ain't here for entertainment. We're here to save our life. You know what I mean? Sometimes we got to talk about that. You know what I'm saying? Why are we here? You know? Are we live yet? We live. My name is Marsh and I'm an addict. Yeah. And I'm a person in long-term recovery as well. Let me tell you how that came about. The changes, how this thing changes, right? What was told to me was in certain circles, you can say, I'm an addict. In certain circles, you can't. Certain circles, if you say you're an addict, you're going to turn somebody off. So the terminology then is, I'm a person in long-term recovery, you know, which means I haven't found it necessary to use. Talk about changes in some programs, changes in NA program. That's what I'm representing tonight. Changes in the NA program. At one time, the basic text stated that you have to have an honest desire to stay clean. They took the honesty part out of it. That was a change, you know. Today, I'm here for those that may be going home real soon to give you a genuine conversation. I'm an addict today. When I leave here, I'm going to think about using. I done used for 20 years. What make you think that I'm going to go out there in the first 6 months that I'm out there, I ain't going to think about using? The title of this thing is, you cannot outsmart the disease of addiction. You can't outsmart the disease. I know somebody out there right now running from himself because he think he can become a weekend user. Got a job, making some money, and the money got him in trouble because he think he can become a functional addict. It might work for a little while. That's what tricks us up. That's what trips us up. You leave here, you don't go to a meeting, you don't do nothing for a month, and you think you're cured. While you're here, you may not have thought about using, and you done gained some weight from them donuts, and you think you're cured, you know, because you ain't dealing with the disease. Another change that I saw from being here, we saw education find its way into the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. People started coming here, high school graduates, college graduates. The message is, I don't care how much time you got, or I don't care how much education you got, you cannot outsmart the disease of addiction. This thing is cunning, baffling. This thing is insidious. You might can go out there and white knuckle it for 9 months, and then all of a sudden, the urge comes, and you be like, where did that come from? Somebody else would tell you it came from the fact that you done used for 15 years. Let me tell you something personal. My sister-in-law passed last Wednesday. John spoke about that, you know, last time we were here. My sister-in-law passed last Wednesday. You know, my mother passed almost a year ago, you know. Anyway, a friend of mine, I texted him yesterday, and I was telling him about the arrangements for the service. And the steward, one of my best friends. Steward been clean 36 years, getting ready to celebrate our anniversary. I've been clean going on 35 years, September the 1st. And him and I, man, just have clicked since being in recovery. I'm riding in the car because another addict called me and said, man, Irvin's celebrating tonight. And man, something in me says I'm going to be there. I was there last year thinking about what Irvin did for me, you know. And I said, I'm going to that meeting, right? So I tell my wife and all that, man, they around the house making some arrangements and doing all that. I said, I'm going to go to the meeting tonight. You know, she said, okay, go ahead, you know. So I'm riding, I'm telling Stuart all of what's been going on and how I've been supporting Brenda. And, you know, after we go through what we go through, being at her sister's house and making arrangements, we come home, we lay in the bed and we talk for an hour. We exchange feelings and thoughts, you know. Stuart tells me, he said, man, you need a meeting. I'm like, Stu, I'm on my way to a meeting now. He said, where you going? I said, I'm going to Irvin's anniversary. He said, man, I'm going to Irvin's anniversary. You know what I'm saying? And I said, well, I'll meet you there. And the point being is great minds think alike. Both of us got 35, 36 years in here. But we need to go somewhere to relieve ourselves when we going through something. I don't care how long you've been here. It could be 35 days. You're going to eventually go through something. And you need to know how to handle that. You know? And I went to the meeting, and that's what I did. I told them the same story that I'm telling y'all. One of the things that came out of the meeting after sharing is understanding that this whole thing is spiritual. Everything that goes on in here is a spiritual piece. You know? Even from the sheriff and John allowing us to have this meeting in here. There's something spiritual about that. Somebody cares something about you. You know? Somebody want to see you get your life together. I like what she said. You know? I use because I'm bored. And then I make a decision to go to jail because I'm bored, or I make a decision to screw my life up because I'm bored. I need to find something to do. And I tell you, coming into this program, the program of Narcotics Anonymous, and I need to tell you, there's several pathways out there. But this is what got me to where I'm at today, the program of Narcotics Anonymous. For 6 months, I just had to sit and learn what the program was all about. You come in and you sit down and you listen. Take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. Listen to what this program is all about. Because we don't know. I didn't know. All I know how to do and all you know how to do after you leaving here is use. So why you ain't going to think about it? You're going to think about it. And then you're going to go to like, oh, they were lying to me at the jail. No, you lying to yourself. You're an addict. If you like me, I live to use and use to live. Use anything. People, places, money, job. I use anything to get what I wanted. And you know, we are more alike than we are different. The likeness is what can get you a better life. You know? I mean, we learn about each other. The best thing we can do while we're here is we start that process of knowing who and what we are. I told the individual early part of the day, I ain't been to the projects in 25 years because I know what the projects represent for me. Certain things I haven't done either in 25, 30 years because I know what that represents me. I know who I am. I know what I am, you know, and I know what would trip me up. I had to learn how to get a job, get a paycheck, and don't give it to the dope man. You know? Got me going, got me the way I want to be today. You know? Man, if you come in here and think life is just about not using, you'd have missed something. A good part of the program you have missed. It's about us identifying our character defects, man. Identifying the things that trip us up, man. Identifying the things that make us think we so smart. You know what I mean? I got that. I got that. No, you don't have it. Come in here, man, and learn what this program is all about, you know? And I'm here representing NA. I'm also here representing McShin. That's a place that you can go to from 9 months, 30 days, 9 months. Most people come in 30 days. They know they ain't getting what they need in 30 days. 9 months to a year, you know? And ease your way back into life. Ease your way back into recovery. And at the same time, soaking some stuff in, man. Man, I mean, some people think the worst thing could happen to us was these telephones. You know, and that was good and that was bad. We got, man, it's a resource, man. We can get information that the politicians got. You know, AI, I got to tell you, AI, artificial intelligence. Got it on my phone, I got it on my tablet. I can ask a question, and they will give me the answer to it. That's what's happening. Anytime you want a question, you can put it in there, and you can get the answer to it. And it's a simulator to me as about recovery. Any question you want to know, just put it to John, or put it to me, put it to Rob, put it to anybody. What do I do when I'm having dreams? Dreams are just dreams. They are not reality. I've heard so many people say, oh man, I had a dream that I used. So then you went out there and used. You know what I'm saying? Destroyed everything that you had. Man, I got to keep the mic up in my mouth, you know. Dreams are just dreams, you know. Don't water that stuff, man. Don't water that stuff like we used to. You know what I mean? So think about it, man. You know, my thing, when you leave here, you got to have a strategy. You can't have a bullshit plan. You know, you got to have a strategized plan. I hate to hear people say, oh, I ain't see that coming. Some people say you got to have two plan A's. Some people say you got to have a plan A, plan B, plan C. Sheriff Gregory got an announcement to make, you know, about running again. And her and I were talking. And I said, well, you know what you got to do? You got to work twice as hard as you did last year. You got to use that information that you learned last year, and you got to take it to another level. And that's just what I believe. The stuff that you get right here, you got to take that to another level, you know? And you got resources to do that. I'll meet you at McShin, you know? And with that, if y'all don't know, y'all probably know now, I'd like to introduce this guy back here. His name is John Shinhauser, and he's the president and co-founder of McShin.
They didn't know that.
I like that shirt. Man, ain't this dude got some swag? Y'all should have saw him about 40 years ago.
Yeah, my wife does my shopping. I see the FedEx truck coming up the driveway. I said, I know she got something in there for me, man. But that's how she rolls.
Look at the belt, man. Look, he got a belt. I mean, he got some swag, man.
Give the chef that mic.
Okay. Hey, look.
Oh, yeah.
We got the Hey Dude shoes
yeah,
on.
buddy.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
and we playing golf tomorrow, too.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bad day for Marshall tomorrow. Yeah. I'm feeling good. You know, before I introduce the speaker, you know, I don't know if y'all probably know what it takes to be a sheriff and run a jail and run a sheriff's office.
No, they don't know.
Well, I mean, my Lord, you got to have hundreds of employees up in here, and they do civil service out in the community. They do courtroom protection. There's some bad people in this facility they got to keep safe. And I can only imagine the stress, the pressure, the duties. You know, when you deal with a lot of people, half of them probably don't want to do what they're supposed to do. And then you got the inmates to deal with. But as you know, very few jails in America has a sheriff like we have here in Henrico County, Sheriff Gregory, whether you know that or not or feel that or not. And not only to let us from the recovering community come up in here and facilitate our messaging, you know, healthy recovering messaging, but, you know, she shows up. And, you know, this is a sheriff that just ain't here to talk about re-election. She comes anyway. The first 3 months we did this, she came every week. And anytime we need access, I mean, we have it. Y'all get access. So, you know, there's multiple atta-girls in what I'm saying here. You know, not only is she a fine sheriff, but going above and beyond what the call of duty is, especially when it comes to really trying to provide solutions for addiction for our community. And, you know, I'm thrilled to death. I didn't realize there was elections year already, man. It would seem like just yesterday you were elected. But, you know, I would bet the worst part about your job is having to run for re-election. Just throwing that out there. But let's give a warm welcome for Sheriff Gregory.
So, good evening, everybody. Like John said, this right here in this meeting is a highlight for me, because everybody that brings a message, there is something that's relatable to us all, right? And like John said, being a sheriff, the politics part is the worst part of it, right? I'm not a politician. But what I am is a member of the Henrico County community who loves people. I love my community, you know. And unfortunately, I was just talking to our speaker, and sometimes we can think that can happen to anybody but me. Not true. Not true. But by the grace of God, there go I. Anybody that you look at and what they're going through, it's only by the grace of God that it's not happening to you. So it would behoove you to learn from other people's lessons. And also remember to connect to people in a community that's going where you want to go. And I always say, surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. Surround yourself with people that want what you want and are working towards what you want. Now, sometimes that means you got to cut some people off that you love. And that's okay. I'm the sheriff. I'm in law enforcement. Some of my family and my friends, they can't come near me nor my pocketbook. I had to make that choice, right? Because how I'm living and what I want to, and I always want to be an example for somebody else. Younger people, older people. Like, you can't just talk the talk. You can't, that talking and saying, do what I say and not what I do, it don't work. And you got to learn to listen. Sometimes the best action you can take is shut your mouth, get out your way, and listen to somebody else. We always think we're the smartest person. I know, I got this. Most of the time we get tripped up is us to trip ourselves up. Because we think we know everything. We got that. That happened to them, it ain't gonna happen to me. Not true. Be humble, be kind, and surround yourself with people that are where you want to go. All right? So with that, yes, I'm always here. I'm always praying for y'all. I try to do my best. And sometimes it's hard, right? Because sometimes y'all really think y'all know what it is that's best for y'all. All right? I tell you, I'm blessed to have close to over 300 employees. And for the most part, my employees know what my heart is, what my passion is, taking care of people, and that's what we do. All right? So remember, some decisions that's made, you don't know it all. You can't know it all. But when we make decisions based on your plan of action, it is always with your best interest at heart. All right? And I can't thank McShin and the recovery community enough, because when I tell you these people show up, they don't take a day off. Holidays, it's no holidays. What John said, you ain't take no holiday from getting high. Why you gonna take a holiday from your recovery? And they show up all the time, and they not just here, they in the community too. You don't lose this because you get out of here. You got access to this 24/7. Even if you don't go and stay at McShin, their doors are always open to everybody. Sometimes I go just to get something for me. Don't lose that. Connect. Create a village that will keep you uplifted, and give it away. All right? Share with others. All right? Thank you. I love y'all. I could talk for the rest of the evening, but I got to go and y'all got a program.
Thank you. Thank you. Our speaker tonight is, I met this speaker, I don't know, 9 years ago. She came across McShin parking lot one day. She couldn't have weighed 90 pounds soaking wet. I mean, like the scrawniest little thing I ever seen. I felt bad for her, man. But somehow she ended up in McShin. She stuck and she stayed. And I know a little bit about her history, and it ain't easy coming from a very dysfunctional situation. Learn about recovery. She took to recovery like a duck in water. And I do know when we helped Sheriff Linden start the HEART program, She was the first female facilitator we had over there facilitating the females. And I mean, I've seen this girl go from a young girl to a mature woman, become an incredibly useful, productive member of our community. I watched her struggles. Married some crazy guy in recovery. He's going to be our speaker next week at East. And, you know, I'm always amazed, and got beautiful children. I mean, Katna, we love her to death, and I think she has one little exception in her story, but the courage it took to recognize it and keep on going was just amazes me. But I'm not going to tell the story. I'm going to let her do that. So let's give a warm welcome for Jessie. As you can see, she ain't that scrawny anymore.
In my defense, I'm growing a human too. Okay. Hi, I'm Jessie. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I just also want to preface with I'm a mother to an amazing 5-year-old little girl who has her own struggles in life.
That's mine.
I get to be a wife today, which is like baffling to me. I'm a homeowner now. I've got cars that have insurance on them and they're registered. You know what I mean? And I make those payments. I'm a registered nurse. I get to help women after they have had their babies. And my favorite part of it is when women come in with substance use disorder and they're struggling that battle. I think that sometimes God drops little hints in my life because I'll come into work and they'll tell me that I got a mom and a baby that have to be monitored. And I always think, I'm like, God, you knew what you were doing. It just, you know, it's like that mom, I feel like sometimes that mom needed me because she doesn't know who I am and she doesn't know that I'm a person in recovery, but she needed that compassion and that empathy. And I'm just so honored to be there for them. I remember what it's like having a child, and it's the scariest thing you ever do in your life. So I can sit here and I can talk to you all day about getting high. I mean, I started getting high when I was 15. I'm from the east end of Henrico, around the airport area, like towards New Kent, and I am born of 2 people that could not raise me. I was raised by grandparents because my parents, I'll just tell you that I was either conceived in the back of a car at a Grateful Dead concert or a NASCAR race. I don't know which one, but those are the stories I'm told. And my parents used, and unfortunately they still do. My mother has been introduced to recovery, and let me tell you, the person that she is today, I pride myself on raising my mother. It's not easy raising a Karen, but unfortunately that is just the way that it has crumbled, that sometimes we outgrow and we outmature some of the people around us that we at one time looked up to. And God, is that just such a gift of recovery, that I was able to be there for my mother, and now my mother comes to me and asks me for advice, and I'm her shoulder to lean on. And you know, I remember days where I threw my mother into walls. Yes, 85 pounds, but you know, when you're on a drug bender and you got adrenaline, you will pick somebody up and just shove them right into a wall. And now me and my mother get to have that relationship. My parents they couldn't take care of me. I don't have a relationship with my father. I'll tell you, that's another blessing because I learned in recovery to set boundaries. When you are no longer serving my life and you are actually causing me to second guess who I am and my quality, I have to learn that I can love you from over there. And then also I had to learn that there are certain things, once I had children, it became my mission to break the cycle. And I realized that if it wasn't a cycle that I didn't break, my children were going to be stuck with it. If I didn't break the cycle of addiction or promiscuity or all of the other things, I was going to pass that down to my children, and then that was going to have to be a demon that my child was going to have to either live with or break themselves. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I had to do it with my parents, and I said, you know what, God has given me the strength, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to end this one right here. I'm able to be there for my daughter today. I have her in therapy once a week. She's about to be 5 years old. And I put her in therapy when she was 2.5 because this is why. I don't know how to be a parent. I didn't have a very good example growing up. I don't know how to process my feelings in a healthy way because I got beat. That's all I knew. I either got beat or abandoned for just being a child. So I don't know how to help my children process their feelings, and so because of that, I decided to put my daughter into play therapy, where I can talk with someone who is a professional that can help me understand how her brain works and who she is as a person, and then they can give me suggestions, and I can understand my child for who she is and not who I think she needs to be. And because of that, me and my daughter have a beautiful relationship where, don't tell her dad this, but I am her favorite. I mean, it truly, she'll tell you. And, you know, people look at me and they're like, Jessie, why do you have a 4-year-old in therapy? Because I want the best for her. I want to give her everything no one gave me. Nobody sat down with me and asked me about my feelings. It was shut up. Shut up, stop crying. I'm going to give you something to cry about. If you don't like it, you can go to bed and starve. You eat what I make you, and that's all you get. You know, just things like that growing up, where it wasn't like a let's talk about why you feel the way you feel, or let me like understand you. It was, you're an annoyance, be quiet. And I don't want my kid to feel like that, because you want to know why? Because I grew up as the kid in high school and middle school where one day I went to school in Air Forces, and you remember those like flights jackets with the black on the outside and the orange on the inside? I'd go, and I'd let the girls braid my hair. The next day, I'd show up with etnies, fake piercings in my lip, my hair all slicked back, and I was some goth girl. And then the next day, I was wearing Hollister jeans and a crop top shirt, and I was like with, you know, the preppy kids. I didn't know who I was, and I was just constantly looking for validation and acceptance everywhere. And then when I found drugs, I found the acceptance within myself. Because for a moment in time when I was using, I was completely numb from everything else. And I know that we all identify with that feeling. I don't get high. Yeah, sure. Like, I partied and had fun because it was fun as a teenager. But the reality is that when I started dabbling in, like, I don't really have to tell you what I use. I can tell you that if you used it, I probably used it. If you used it a certain way, I probably used it the certain way you did. When John found me, I had abscesses all over my body. I'd picked my face to death. I'd cut my hair. I had probably about 6 hairs to make up one whole eyebrow, and that's about it. And I was 85 pounds soaking wet. I mean, one of the drugs that I used now is considered a research chemical. So I got high. And I got high, and it wasn't for partying anymore. It was because I didn't have to think, and I didn't have to feel, and I could just be with myself for just moments of time. So when I'm just so grateful that God, and you'll hear me talk about God, and that's because I work a 12-step program. And that 12-step program is the foundation of finding a higher power, a loving, caring higher power, and then giving your will and your life over to that power. So the foundation of my program is a higher power that I choose to call God. I don't want that to deter anybody or rub anybody the wrong way. I don't care. I have people in my life who the Force, you know, like the Star Wars, the Force is their higher power. Some people talk about doorknobs because it opens a new door in life. I mean, I have, you know, someone else, she says that her higher power is the voice of Morgan Freeman. Good for her. So I love them all to death. I don't care what your higher power is. Just get one. Find something to talk to, because let me tell you something, we are sick. I am sick in my head all the time. The things that I think about and the things that I worry about are just so far beyond me. And I can go to my husband on a daily basis. I can go to my pastor. I can go to my grandmother. I can go to my mom. And it does not stop that voice inside my head. I have got to have something else that I can give my weight to, because I will carry it alone, and it doesn't matter who I talk to. People just don't understand me. I have a real bad disease of you don't understand. You don't know how I feel. You don't get me. You've never walked in my shoes. You've never been through my trauma. I have a lot of it. my parents not being there. I started being sexually assaulted as a 5-year-old child. I have a lot of men who have left my life. I've been beaten by men that I thought loved me. All of these things that have happened. So I have trauma, and when I got here, I had a huge victim mentality. So it's very easy for me to look at you and say, you just don't get it. Like, you don't know the pain that I've gone through. And so I have to have a relationship with someone who can take the pain from me. And my husband can't do that, and my mother can't do that. The only person that can do that for me is my higher power. And so I'm so grateful that I think that God works through people and through the people that come in contact. I don't think anything happens on coincidence. I see everything as what I call a God wink. When something happens and you're just like, that was too good to be true. No, that was a God wink. That was a little shot saying, I'm right here. I'm right here with you. You're not alone. And so for me, John is a God wink. I was in the hospital. I was dying of sepsis. I say dying because the doctor came in and said, if you continue to use the way that you're using, the sepsis is not going to stop. And we can't keep the IV antibiotics that we're using aren't going to keep up with it, and you're going to die. And that's just it. Like, your organs are starting to go. My kidneys were starting to go. And I looked at the doctor, and I remember being so half out of it and saying, then just let me die. And I remember, and I say that with such sincerity because I remember the pain. Like, I don't know if any of you guys have ever been using against your will, but I'm talking about you're sitting there and you're using and you're doing whatever you have to do to get high, and you are crying at the same time because you don't want to be here anymore. And like, not using doesn't feel like it's an option. So the only other option is you're just like, you know what? Maybe I'll just walk out in front of traffic. Like, maybe I'll go start a riot and get something to take place to take me out of here. Or maybe I'll just take my own life. Or hopefully maybe this shot is my last one and I'll just OD. Like, I don't know if you've ever felt that, but for me, that's using against my will. I don't want to be here and I don't want to be this person, and I can't stop. And so I was in that moment where I truly just wanted to die with a needle in my arm. And I wanted the doctors and I wanted my family to just leave me alone and let me have at it. And I looked at my grandmother and my mom and I said, you've got one shot. And it wasn't even for me. I didn't get clean for myself at first. I looked at my mother and my grandmother and I said, you have one shot to get me clean. All right? And so my family did everything they could. They ended up finding a local community service board in Hanover, and they took me there. And then that led me to an NA meeting. And then that NA meeting where John's wife, it's his home group, led me to an NA camp out, which led me to a boy, which led me to the McShin parking lot. John came up to me and he said, man, you can't use here. Because he could tell I was high as gas. And I was just chasing a boy. And he said, you can't come here if you're just going to come here and sit here all day getting high. And I was like, and I told him, I said, I can't get clean at home. I said, that's where I get high. I get high with my mom. And because my story ends up evolving into getting high with my parents. And I said, I can't get clean there. I get high with my parents. And he told me, he said, all right. He said, you show up here tomorrow. He said, you show up here tomorrow and we're going to take you to Tucker's. He said, when you get out of Tucker's, you've got 90 days here for free on us. And I don't know what it was, but it was like my adrenaline just jumped. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And I wish I could tell you that I didn't use again. I went to Tucker's. I did exactly, because when I was given the opportunity, I ran with it. Because it wasn't of me. I feel like there was something of like my higher power that was just like, go. Don't look back. Don't think twice. Just take the opportunity and run with it. And I did. I just did. I got out of Tucker's, and when my mom picked me up, I got high again. Probably shouldn't have my mom pick me up. But I did. I got high, but then I showed up at McShin. and he kept to his word. You know, while I was there, they taught me how to put clothes on. When I first got clean, I was 21 years old, and I got clean, and I didn't know how to dress appropriately. I showed my titties, I showed my butt, I showed every part of me that I could. I thought I looked cute. I was Skeletor, if I'm being honest. I was this big, and my hair was this long, and it was bright pink. And they were like, you've got to put clothes on. You've got to cover your stomach up. You've got to cover your areas. You got to look like a lady. You've got no self-esteem. And that just pissed me off because I look damn good. I don't know. I did not know why they were telling me that. I was like, y'all are just jealous because I have a body. No. I was very, very delusional at that point in time. And so the longer I stayed clean, the more I started feeling a little ashamed about how I was carrying myself. You know, it turned from these people are jealous of me to, you know, all these men are just staring at me all the time. And then it turned into, you know, I don't feel very comfortable in these clothes. And I started dressing a little bit more appropriately. But as I started dressing more appropriately, I started acting a little less crazy. And I started holding my head up a little bit higher and walking around the room like I had some confidence. And then I started putting weight on, and I started getting eyebrows back. I'm very proud of the ones that I have today. I'm very proud of them. And then, you know, McShin gave me a job, and they let me be their assistant. And I took that with such pride, you know, because the last time I had a job, I got fired the second day that I was there because I wouldn't come out the bathroom. And, you know, that's a real hit to your ego when you're completely unemployable because you can't stay out the bathroom long enough to just make a little paycheck, a little $7.25 an hour paycheck. And so they gave me a job, and I took it very seriously. I was very proud that somebody trusted and believed in me for once. That job evolved into, I ended up becoming a facilitator at the Chesterfield County Jail, and eventually they promoted me to the director of judicial programs, where I oversaw all of the jail programs that we had at McShin in the state of Virginia. Man, let me tell you, I have an 8th grade education. And I don't know if y'all heard me in the beginning, but I'm a registered nurse now. I dropped out of high school after trying to do 9th grade, failing 9th grade twice. It got to the point where these people at this school had me, instead of extracurriculars like home ec, they had me in 10th grade classes. They were like, look, girl, you've been doing 9th grade so much that we'll let you do some 10th grade classes too. We just need you to get out of here. And finally they came to me and they said, look, this just ain't for you. This has been years of us trying to get you through this. And so I dropped out without ever passing the 9th grade. So I have a middle school education. And so when I became the director of judicial programs, that was a miracle. And I was able to go into facilities and I was able to carry a message of hope, because that's all I have. I don't have any life advice for you. I can tell you what not to do. Yes, I married a very crazy man. I love him with all of me. I absolutely love him to death. That man is my best friend and we are the same kind of crazy. But that was not without pain and a lot of trials and tribulations of going through. And there was even points where we had to separate from each other. And, you know, I'll let him tell his own story next week. But, you know, all I can say is that I had to live with a man that I loved turn into someone that I didn't even know due to he went back out. And so I ended up, the first few years of recovery, you know, are kind of just like, I went to 90 meetings, I went to about 180, if not more, meetings in 90 days. If I had the opportunity to go to a meeting, I went to a meeting. Some nights it was, we went to a meeting, we jumped in the car, we went to another meeting, and then we went out to eat and we had our own meeting. And that's what we did almost every single night. I stayed in a recovery house. I went from the McShin Foundation, I went through their program, and I went to their Step Up, and then I went to their next Step Up, and then I ended up moving to just kind of like a basic sober living house that didn't have a program, and I stayed in recovery housing for 13 months. I don't really understand why there's any point to leave. I'm so grateful that McShin has started the process of opening housing for people with children. Right now, they have housing for women with children, and I can't wait to see how this flourishes and blossoms, because I know that a lot of people come into the rooms with children. I didn't. But let me tell you, that time of just paying my bed fee and getting to meetings and then slinging pizzas at Lito's Pizza on Willow Lawn, that was the time of my life. Absolute time of my life. I laughed like I've never laughed before. I embraced life for everything that it was. And for once in my life, it felt like I was allowed to be a child. Like I was allowed to just be not someone, not so serious all the time, not so desperate all the time, not so degrading all the time. I was able to just go out and interact with people, make friends, build relationships, learn just the basics. Because I don't know about y'all, but it's real hard for me to pay my credit card bill on time. Like, you know, at 30 years old, married with children, sometimes I'm still like, man, if it wasn't for auto pay, I'd be screwed. Absolutely. And so coming into sober living after I've been using all my money, because I don't know about y'all, but I've stayed in houses where the electricity got turned off, and instead of using $20 to see if they would just like turn it on, like, look, I'll send you what I got in my account right now. It just turn on the electric so I don't have to live like an animal. No, that money's got other plans, right? And so being able to be in the recovery house for the year, like I got that little job, and I only went to the bathroom when I needed to, which was like absolutely amazing to me. And then I started paying my own bed fees, so my grandma didn't have to anymore after that 90 days was up. My grandma started paying my bed fees for me. And you know how inspiring it and how motivating it was when I called her one day and I said, hey, you don't have to pay it. I already did. And she was like, are you sure? Do you need groceries? No, I'm good. I got myself right now. All right, I'll let you know if I need help, okay? And so I was able to take over that, and I was, with pride, went up to the 7-Eleven and got my money order for, you know, $150 a week, and I went and I gave it to McShin, and I said, here you go, that's my money. That made me really proud. But I wouldn't have been able to do that. Like, that's what staying in sober living did for me for that first year, was allowed me to become moldable and just like take care of responsibilities that I had never taken care of before. And then if you're over here and you're just like, y'all don't understand how hard it is, I didn't have a license for the first 2 years of my recovery, and I got to work every single day, and I got to 2 meetings every single day. So if you're in here and you're like, yeah, it's really hard, you find the bus line, and you know what? The biggest thing, use that phone and phone a friend. Build a network. Find people that will carry you to and from, because that's what I did. I woke up each morning not knowing how I was getting to work in Willow Lawn from Lakeside. And I'd pick up the phone at 8 o'clock in the morning, sitting there with my coffee, and I'd start going down the list. Can you take me to work? Can you take me to work? Can you take me to work? And God forbid, if I had to, I would Uber there if I really, really needed it. But I got to work every single day. And then I got somebody to pick me up every single day and take me to a meeting. And so that was the first of me like learning how to reach out and learning how to like gain relationships and build friendships. I'm just so grateful for that time there, because it gave me just the fundamentals of living life. And so I'll give you guys like this really cool thing. So normally when you get married, like a pastor does it. So me and my husband, we had John officiated for a day, truly, and by the state of Virginia. And this is how much the McShin Foundation has done for me and my husband and my daughter. So we had John marry us. We've got pictures to prove it and everything. We are ordained by the McShin Foundation. And so that is the type of relationships that we've built in my life. I can skip forward just a little bit. So I stayed clean. I ended up moving out of a recovery house with another woman in recovery who had children. We were able to, she was able to get her children back full time. And man, one of her daughters, she's at my house on a weekly basis. She tells everybody that I'm her sister. And she tells everybody that my daughter is her niece, and those are the beautiful relationships that we get to build in this program. Is that girl does not see me as anything else other than her family member. And if she goes through something in life, man, she called me a few months ago and said, "Can you teach me how to open a 401k?" Oh, I cried. I just cried. This little 18-year-old girl called me and said, "Can you teach me how to open a 401k?" I said, "Girl, you better go ahead." All right. And so I got a home with her, and I ended up being able to buy a car, and I just lived my life. And if you're in here and you're in a relationship, I'm not the one to tell you not to get in one, but I will tell you, be prepared to not get high, right? Because I have been through most of the pain that I've experienced, other than my own ego, in recovery, has come from relationships. Being with this one boy, and he didn't like me, and this is true. When I got clean, I was barely 100 pounds. I was probably 90 pounds. And then when I stayed clean for a little while, and I started gaining a little bit of weight on me, and I topped out at probably like 115 at that point. He didn't like me anymore, and he told me I had gotten too fat. Broke my heart. Nothing makes me want to go smoke crack more than somebody telling me that I'm fat. That hurts my feelings. And so he didn't love me anymore. And then the next boy that I fell in love with, he ended up using. He got sent off to rehab and never came back. The next boy that I fell in love with, that boy was so psychotic and couldn't make his mind up. He didn't know if he loved me one day or hated me the next. So that didn't work out. And then I met somebody that I thought was going to be the love of my life, and he left me 2 years later for a stripper. So, that's just what happened there. He's still chasing that girl somewhere down Broad Street. But every single time my heart got broken, I wanted to use, because I didn't know it. The pain was so deep when you give yourself to someone so vulnerably, and you expose yourself to them, and you tell them your hopes and your dreams and your expectations of life. And then for you to feel like you gave, it's like you took your heart out and you took a little piece and you handed it to them and said, "Here, keep this safe." And then all of a sudden for them to tell you that you weren't good enough for what they wanted, and they turn around on you, they don't give that piece of your heart back. They take it with them. And so you have to grieve that piece of you being gone forever. And if you're an addict like me, I don't do well with grief. And I don't do well with being abandoned and given and having, thinking that someone loves me and then they walk away. I don't do good with that type of pain, because it's an insecure pain, is what it does. Is when I look in the mirror after that happens, it's, what did I do wrong? What's not good enough about me? And so then it makes me think, screw this. I'll never be good enough, I'll never add up. I'm unlovable. Nobody will ever want me. I'll be drugged by somebody for the rest of my life. So if you're in here and you get out, or you're already in a relationship, I'm not going to tell you not to get in one, because that's human nature. There is a reason why, we are all meant to be loved by someone. We aren't meant to be alone in the world. We're meant to have children and procreate and have things and have people that love us in our life. But all I'm saying is, be prepared to do whatever you have to do to not use, because you will go through pain. Me and my husband have been through so much pain together. And I'm just so grateful that we picked each other to grow up with, because that's truly what we did. We were two children that got married, and we have grown up together. And so the best thing that I did for myself is, after that man left me for the stripper, and I did all the things. Instead of just getting right with the Lord, I went and I got a tanning bed membership. I started getting my eyelashes done. I lost probably about 30 pounds. I started dyeing my hair green again. And I looked good. I looked real good. I mean, that's the time when I met my husband. So, and he's my husband now. So, just saying. And so, I'm, instead of just like saying, all right, God, come into my life, show me how to live, show me how to love myself, show me how these men do not validate who I am, that you validate who I am. I wanted revenge. I wanted to look like a stripper. And that was like my logic behind it. I was going to make him jealous. I was going to look better than her. And finally, somebody called me out on it. And somebody was like, it doesn't matter how much you transform your outside. There's something wrong with him, not you. And that really hit deep. So I decided that for the next year of my life, that I was going to stay single. No dating, no going out on dates with boys, nothing like that. And I stayed single for an entire year. And in that year's time, I went from being the girl that every single night, where are you guys going tonight? What meeting are you going to? Where are you going out to dinner? Can I get a ride with you? Because the reality is I could not stay alone. Like, I'd stay out until I was too tired to keep my eyes open, so that when I got home, I didn't have to sit with myself. I just went to bed, and when I woke up, I got out the house and I did it all over again. It was like I was still ripping and running. And it was only then that I realized that I was ripping, running clean, because I was running from myself. I didn't like to be still, and I didn't like to be alone. So without dating, and so I don't know if y'all have ever heard of the show Grey's Anatomy. So what I did one night is I decided that I wasn't going to go to a meeting. At this point, I had years clean, and I had gotten a cat for comfort. I don't know why I did that, but I did. I got a cat for comfort. And I told them that I wasn't going to come out tonight, and instead I made myself cry. And y'all might be like, why would you do that? Can I tell you that crying is one of the most therapeutic things you can do for yourself? Allowing yourself to feel your feelings and release the pressure of the pain that you're carrying. And I don't remember the last time I had cried. I think the last time that I had cried before that was when my cousin had killed himself. And right before I had gotten clean. I think that was the last time that I remember Ed crying, because when I was in recovery, everything was so good. But the reality is like I was so broken still with years clean in recovery, and I was running off of ego because I had some clean time and people knew who I was. And so I sat in bed and I watched this show and I cried. And then the next day I loved it so much. I went out to a meeting, and instead of going out to dinner, I went and got a little frozen dinner. And me and my cat, I put my pajamas on and I cuddled up and I turned my little fairy lights on and I watched some more and I cried again. And I came to learn that, man, I like crying. And not because I have to be sad, because, man, it's just something so vulnerable about just like relieving yourself of the tension and pain that you carry. So I stayed abstinent from men and all the things that come with men for a year. And after probably about 9 months, I started praying. And I started praying for, because someone had suggested, they said, I want you to start praying for the man that you want. I want you to start talking to God and saying, God, this is who I want, and start listing off the characteristics. And I said, Lord, I want someone who loves you. I want someone who's funny. I want someone who's loyal. I want someone who will stand beside me. And I just started listing all these things off, these characteristics. Someone that their family comes first, they're invested in their children. The next thing after God is me in their life. Like, because, like, I'll share you with God, but like after that, I'm the most important thing. Like, I won't get between you and God, but like, I better be next, even before our kids. Like, it is me next on the totem pole. And so then I met Gregory. He had already known who I was, but I didn't realize how broken he was too. And so I got into a relationship with this guy, and man, he was real damaged. And so I sat in my room one night after getting in fights and arguments with this boy, and I said, Lord, this is not it. I don't know why did you send this kid to me? He is psychotic. And I was like, I just couldn't understand God's plan in this. I really couldn't. And so, somebody was like, hey, look, he's broken goods. You need to just like let him live, let him recover. I know he's got more clean time than you, but he doesn't have like recovery like you do. Like, let him live. So I broke up with him. Well, the matter of the fact is at one point before I went to God and said, hey, this is real crazy what's going on here, I looked at him and I said, you'd be a real good baby daddy. And he said, you'd be a real good baby mama. And so that took place. And then I dumped him. I said, look, you're crazy. This is not God's will for my life. I'm going to just leave now. And I broke the little boy's heart. He was banging on my door, begging me please not to put his stuff outside, and I did anyways, and I wouldn't unlock the door. And wouldn't you know, the next day I had a positive pregnancy test, the very next day. And I said, oh, shit. All right, God. So I waited, and I contemplated whether or not I was going to keep the child or not. And then my sponsor said, look, I want you to make a few pros and cons lists, right? So I want you to think about what your life would be like with the child and without the child. And then I want you to make another pros and cons list on, if you have the child, what are the pros and cons of being with Greg and raising the child, or raising the child alone? And so, you're all right. And so I made the pros and cons list, and I decided that I was going to keep this baby. Then I decided to tell Greg, and we were like, all right, I guess we're going to have to make this work. And I was like, well, you're going to have to get some real help. And he started using instead. So John thinks this shit's funny. I mean, he did. So instead, he started using. And so here I was trying to keep a family, build a family, try to figure out what this was that God had in store for us. And little did I know that the faith and trust and reliance that I had on God and the prayers that I was praying for this man were slowly working in his life. And eventually, so I had the baby, and eventually I looked at him, and this is also like a miracle piece that I kind of want people to understand or like think about, because when you love someone so deeply and they're toxic in your life, or you're toxic together, the last thing you want to do is walk away. And I remember the day I looked at him and I said, I do not love you. I do not love the person that you are. You're not the person that I met, and I would like you to leave. And my heart shattered in that moment, because I saw the abandonment in his face. Like the person that had stayed beside him through his disease was now setting a boundary, and he knew that he was screwed. But let me tell you something. He did. He left. He got kicked out. He got clean 6 months later. And my husband has been clean ever since then, because I set a boundary and I said, you can no longer take from our soul, take from our spirit. You can no longer do this to our family, and you can't stay here and do it. You can go sleep in your truck if you need to. And that was the hardest thing I've ever done, and it was the greatest thing that I've ever done, because thank God, there were times where he was out in the front yard being all crazy, and John came through and grabbed him and would just be like, get in my car before you light her house on fire with her in it. And, and he'd take him and do whatever it was. But then, and this is why we wanted John to marry us, because when my husband had reached his bottom, it was John who held his hand out and said, I'm going to help, let me help you. Let me keep your family together. And so John had pulled me up and introduced me to 12-step and given me a safe place to recover. And he did that for my husband as well, which then in turn saved my daughter my daughter doesn't have to know. My daughter will grow up and she will never know, as long as me and my husband stay clean, she will never know what it's like to have parents in the grips of the disease of addiction. And so I'm so grateful for that.
Didn't he have an OD in there somewhere?
He did. It was the week of our daughter's first birthday, and it was at this time that we were separated. I said that he got clean 6 months later. Well, about that 6-month point, And man, it's just so crazy how your intuition, I don't know if y'all have ever been in this place in life, or like if anything ever like this has happened to you, but it was my intuition. He would always wake up and he would always call or text and just say, like, tell my daughter that I love her. And so I would do that, or he would call and he would just get on the phone, because at that time I worked from home. And he would get on the phone and he would just say, Daddy loves you. It would be 6 o'clock in the morning. Daddy loves you. Daddy will come see you soon. All those things. If ever she was sick, he would drop what he was doing, high as gas. He'd come to the emergency room. He'd sit with us because he loved his daughter so much. And it was the week of her first birthday. It was November the 1st. And she had a surgery. And he knew that I had to be up at 4:30, and I knew that he got up at 5 o'clock every day because of his job. And 5 came and it went, and we're sitting in the operating, we're sitting there waiting for the surgery to start, and there's no call, and then the surgery happens and it ends, and I still get no call from him. And then I'm blowing up his phone, and he's not answering me. And so I get home and I start calling my mom, and I'm telling my mom, man, I think he's dead. And everybody was like, you're crazy. You're absolutely crazy. And I was like, no, Mom, I really do. I think he's dead. And so then I called his mom, because now it's 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning, and I call his mom, and I'm like, look, hey, Greg hasn't called to check on Kepner and her surgery yet. And all his mother said was, oh, shit, because she knew that just wasn't like him. He was going to be there for his baby. And sure enough, I got a call that she called her husband and said, is Greg's truck there? And he said, yes. And she said, will you go up to the camper? Because he had been living in their camper. Will you go up to the camper and check on him? And as he was walking up to the camper, he saw something in the corner of his eye, and he looked over, and it was Greg. And Greg had been out there. He OD'd at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was so cold outside, but he was only taking a breath about every 15 to 20 seconds. So technically, now that I have a little medical experience, technically he was not breathing. That is not enough to sustain life. And so he had been out there for 6 hours, overdosed in a field. And his stepfather did compressions on him for 20 minutes, and I met him at the hospital, and that was a turning point where he said, you know what, I think I'm going to go get help. And he went out to rehab, and shortly after that, he did get clean. And that was the scariest time of my life, and I just am so grateful that something, and I like to say that it's God, kept him from dying that day. Because the fact that he was in that field breathing every 15 seconds for 6 hours, and he's able to stand here. Now, I'm gonna tell you, I tell him all the time, something happened to his hearing, because he don't hear nothing no more. Something happened, and he's a little half-witted these days. So I'm like, something happened to you in that overdose. No, he was always like that. But I'm just like, it had to have been just God's will for him to be here today. I just kind of want to talk about a little bit more before I wrap things up. I don't know, and I don't really care what people think about me, but you might be sitting there saying, like, wow, that's a lot to go through and, like, stay clean through. And, I persevered through a lot. And, like I said earlier, the 2 biggest things that have interfered in my life and in my recovery have been men and my ego. And I need to talk about my ego for a minute. When I met John and when I got clean was August the 3rd, 2014. And so one day, Greg came home and I said, hey, it's been placed in my heart, I want to go to nursing school. And he said, if you think you can do it, I believe that you can, and I will support you through it. And I said, thank you. And so I started going to nursing school. Well, I mean, I think you can only imagine that with that and with having years clean at this point, I started nursing school in 2020. With years clean at that point, everything started taking the back burner just a little bit. When I first started, I was still very active. I was working steps with sponsees. I was going to 2 to 3 meetings a week. I, had Greg there, and we had our daughter, and we were a happy little recovering family all together. Greg was clean at this point, and so I decided to enroll in nursing school. And, everybody said, hey, make sure that you keep your recovery first. And I was like, absolutely. But then as time started going on and I started becoming more consumed with school, the plates that I was balancing and juggling really started to feel unsteady. And so things started taking a back burner. My relationship with my significant other had to be pushed to the side. And then soon later, he had to start picking up the slack of being a parent, more alone than with me as a partner. Meetings, I went down to maybe 1 meeting a week. And this continued to evolve where there was no speaking to him. It was me locking myself in a room. As soon as Greg came home from work, I hand him the kid, and I'm in the room. I lock the door. He puts the kid to bed. I don't even get to see her. I go in while she's already asleep. I give her a kiss goodnight. Getting to that 1 meeting a week doesn't work anymore. I'm not working steps with sponsees. I'm just answering the phone calls if I can. I'm definitely not calling my sponsor anymore. And the whole time I was saying, y'all don't understand. Like, I'm in school, this is really hard, and it needs my attention for me to get where I want to be in life. Like, I have got to give this my everything. And everybody was like, yes, but you need to continue to put your recovery first. You've got to do Zoom meetings. You've got to do something. You've got to put your recovery first. And my response to them was, I have almost 8 years clean. I got recovery. That's not something that you need to worry about. And I used with almost 8 years clean. So I stand up here today with a little over a year clean again. But when your ego becomes so big where you think that you got this and you think that you don't have to work steps anymore because, oh, I've worked all 12 steps 3 times. I know what the steps are. Oh, I can do step work after I'm done with nursing school. I don't need step work for the next 2 years. Oh, I call my sponsor and I check in and I leave a voicemail with her every once in a while. But just riding on the basis of, I've been clean for this long. Like, this is the stuff that starts happening in your head. Am I even a drug addict? Or was I just in a bad place at a bad time? Am I a drug addict, or was I just introduced to people and I was hanging out with people that were getting high? If I had never met those people, then I wouldn't be getting high. I would have never gotten high. I'm probably not a drug addict, and I can probably just drink. I'm probably not a drug addict, and I probably could take prescription medication that the doctor gives me because I've been sober and I've been clean long enough to where, like, the desire to use is no longer there. And so that was all my disease speaking, and I didn't know it. And my disease was coming in the voice of ego because I thought that I had arrived somewhere with my clean time. And a doctor said, hey, you're really stressed out. You're really going through something. Here's a prescription. And when I started taking that prescription, I couldn't stop. It went from me taking the prescription like I was supposed to me just taking one more. The next day, a few days later, just taking, 2 more won't hurt. So next thing you know, the prescription's gone, and it's been 5 days since I filled it. And my husband caught me. And in that moment of my husband catching me, my whole life flashed before my eyes because he looked at me and he pulled a me on me. And he said, this is not the woman that I'm marrying. He said, this is not the woman that I'm marrying. I will not marry a woman that is doing this. You will have to leave our home and I will take our child from you. And I was like, and I went through the reels and I started telling him, Greg, I'm not a drug addict. I'm not an addict. These are my prescriptions. You don't understand. They're mine. I can drink. Look, I'll stop using the prescription, but I'm probably just going to smoke weed or something. And it came down to the fact where I had to sit back and have friends tell me, girl, you took 30 pills that could have killed you in a 5-day period. And you're going to sit here and tell me that the disease is far enough to remove, and that you're not an addict, and that you've got a handle on things, and that you are bigger than the disease of addiction. And it was all in that 24-hour period where I was like, wow, I am still powerless, and my life is still unmanageable, and I need to go back to the first step, and I have to pick up a white key tag too. And I'm so grateful that when I got caught, because this is what I see, people die. There are so many people that I can list off that when I got clean, they had 10 years clean, and they used one time, and they never made it back. And they're dead now. And I'm so grateful that I made a choice in that moment. Instead of running and letting the disease win, I said, you know what, I'm going to go to a meeting tonight, I'm going to pick up a white key tag, and I'm going to start over. And I had to do that I had to do that 4 months before I got married, and 6 months before the nursing school graduation. So that was some stuff. But I have over a year clean now, and I'm just so grateful for that time back. And it was because they told me when I got here, they said either show humility or you're going to get humiliated. And man, was I humiliated, standing up after having almost 8 years clean. I was a month from 8 years clean, and I had to stand up and pick a white key tag up. And so my ass got humbled. And so I just want to tell you guys that if you're here and you get out and the disease starts talking to you, you've got to pick up the phone. They say take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. And yeah, that's true when someone's giving you advice and someone's telling you like, hey, you got to do this and this and this, and you just want to listen to respond and not to understand. That's completely one thing. But when your ass is on fire, you've got to open your mouth. Because the first time that I took that pill, if I had opened my mouth and told my husband, this gets me high, will you please flush the prescription? I could be telling you a whole different story right now. But I didn't, because my recovery had been so far removed and my ego was at the forefront of my life. And instead, I didn't say anything, I continued. And I'm just really grateful that I'm alive today. And now me and Greg have another little baby girl on the way. And we're very excited to have her in November. And I have a second chance at life again. And I have everything that I prayed for. That girl that was alone in that room crying to Grey's Anatomy, I have everything that I prayed for and more. So much more. I didn't ask to be a nurse or have an education or have children. I just asked for a life worth living. And so like God gave me tenfold. And that is truly because I just didn't get high, and I stayed in sober living, and I stopped using drugs, and it just all unfolded to the greater good. We don't have to rip and run anymore. Like, let me tell you, I've done my fair share. I might be this woman that you see in front of me, but I remember one time I thought I was a gangster. Like, I truly did. Like, I'm not even lying. Like, I did some stuff where I hit somebody in the head with a gun one time. Like, I thought I was cool. Like, I thought I was, but let me tell you, like, that stuff was not, like, who was that? Who was that? I don't even know her. I have no clue who that girl is today, because, like, God has done so much that I am a beautiful woman that has everything life ever has to offer. I've sat in jail before. I've been to just about every jail in the general area, and I've done my little bids here and there, and sometimes they were the best times of my life, because when I was incarcerated, I got meals that were hot, I had a bed to sleep in, and I was removed from drugs, so I didn't have to think about using. And my mom used to tell me all the time, like, why are you just so happy when you're incarcerated? Because there's no way for me to get high. I can't think about it anymore. So I know what it's like to be in here and actually kind of feel at peace, because you can't get high. And then the moment that you smell the fresh air, it's almost like, let's take back off. But you can have everything that I have, or you can have everything you want and more, if you just give this an opportunity and just like do something different. Just don't do what it is that you've done every single other time. Like, just do something different, because if nothing changes, nothing changes. And when the pain gets great enough, I hope you do something different. So that's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.
Yeah. Good talk. Very proud of you. I love you. Hey, let me ask y'all a quick question. How many of y'all think you're going to like going to meetings when you get out?
Testing.
Only a few of you. That's not good. I'll tell you why. Because she's right, man. That disease will definitely talk to you, whether you believe in it or not. Most folks, there's a reason Marshall got 35 years. You know, day after tomorrow, if I make it, I'm celebrating 41 years. And I still go to 3 meetings a week, and some of them are better than others. But you know what? It's like a little insurance policy. And no, it ain't guaranteed to keep us clean, but you integrate some actions there. I just cannot tell you in words how much I value not only freedom from active addiction, but freedom to make selections out there. I know Subway may not be much, I know the green team gets Subway every now and then, right? I mean, that was my lunch of choice today. I wanted tuna fish, go light, you know what I mean? But, I mean, I like selecting the food I ate, the place I live, the money I get to spend. I had a guy I'm going to tell you a little true story. God told me today if I help him with the project, if it goes like we hope it goes, he told me 6 months from now, if the project goes right, I'm just helping the guy for fun. He doesn't even realize how much fun I'm having just helping him with the project. He'll take me and my wife on a first-class, all-expense-paid trip to Israel. And I'm thinking, shit, he ain't got to do that. I'm gonna do this anyways to be successful. But if I was sitting in jail, I'd never have that opportunity. I always wanted to go to Israel. I mean, I hear the food's good and the sights are cool. But Jessie, she just gave a full story. Life on drugs, life in recovery, life if you step away from your recovery. But the fortunate scenario that, if you realize, if you get, for those of you who ain't going to chase meetings when you get out, for those of you that think you're going to do a bong hit and drink a beer, just in case it goes south on you pretty quick, recognize it and then go where the love is. And if you go where the love is, you can quickly accelerate back, But I wouldn't mess around much. What did you hear, Marshall?
Yeah. Thank you, Jessie. I used to work for Jessie. Jessie was facilitating out there at Pomorkie, Hanover, and I was a facilitator over there, and she was running the program. He was there.
Yeah.
But the saying is, and Jessie talked about that meetings, man, going to meetings is a place that you can go and get an atmosphere of recovery, Everybody you see gonna give you hugs, gonna welcome you and gonna listen to you, gonna share with you, And I find out that I still need that. I still want that, I went to the meeting last night, man, and it was like, man, I'm sitting with Ronnie, Eli, Stewart, and Walter. You know what I'm saying?
Strong. That's
man,
a couple 100 years of recovery right there.
I was excited. You know what I'm saying? And John got an anniversary coming up. Stewart got an anniversary coming up. I'm excited, for that atmosphere of recovery that's going to generate. You know what I'm saying? And I need that, man. I know, that's what I know about myself. I can't do it by myself. It just won't happen. You know what I'm saying? And,
Sunday night, when y'all are going to bed Sunday night, every Sunday is my home group. I just want you to think about this. 6 o'clock Sunday, this Sunday, whatever you're all at, whatever you're doing, think, oh, it's 6 o'clock. We'll be celebrating my anniversary at my home group. I've already, Rice is getting the cakes, U-Crops. I want a chocolate bar cake, coconut cake. Gabe will probably bring an hors d'oeuvre platter, meats and cheeses. We'll have a couple extra people there. There'll be some boys and girls there. Someone will be checking each other out, They'll have that opportunity to get the brain chemistry going and get some good cake and hot cup of coffee. And Now I realize that may not sound much to y'all right here, right now. But compared to what we're going to be doing Sunday and what y'all going to be doing Sunday, you got to kind of weigh it out. You know, going to meetings, staying clean, drug use, going to jail, or if that's not simple enough, drug use, shit sandwich, staying clean, U-Crops cake. I mean,
Tuna sandwich.
y'all got to sometimes break it down, you know. So
Think it all the way through.
we say it all the time, man. I mean, if you're an addict like we are, this is the way out. It's called recovery. Real simple stuff, you know, and it ain't that complicated. We can do it.
Yeah.
My God, I mean, you just heard Jessie talk. I mean, not only if Jessie can do it, but an 8th grade education, it ain't easy being a nurse. I can't imagine what you went through to try to get that degree.
Yeah.
Scares me to death to think about it, but anything's possible in recovery. We good?
Yeah, I'm good.
We good?
Good seeing y'all.
Another hand for Jessie.
Yeah.
We'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Y'all good tonight.
2 weeks.
Thank you.
2 weeks.